Hello, my name's Kerry and I want to welcome you to National Ugly Mugs, NUM. We're a sex worker serving, violence prevention and victim support charity in the UK, and our mission is to end all forms of violence against sex workers. Each and every day here at NUM, sex workers share information with us about crimes and harms committed against them in order to warn others in their community, and we advocate for the rights of sex workers as equal citizens and to eliminate the conditions that lead to survival sex. We want to welcome you today to join us for International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers, a day where on the 17th of December every year around the world, sex workers and their allies gather to remember those who the sex work community have lost to violence, injustice and to stigma. We gather to mourn, to grieve and to renew our commitment to changing the conditions sex workers face so that no more lives are needlessly lost. I'd now like to introduce you to our CEO here at NUM, Dr. Raven Bowen, who will tell you more. Thank you.
International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers 2021 is a significant moment for us at NUM. In previous years, we've asked people to say their names, to recognize that sex workers have been murdered in their communities. But this year, we're asking something different. We're asking the community to do more than say their names. To mark this special occasion for us, we've asked Nadia Whittome, the MP for Nottingham East, to provide an opening statement. Now, this is someone who does more in her community than superficial support or superficial engagement with marginalized individuals. So Nadia will give her statement, followed by a range of individuals from the community who will say their names. So we invite you to listen, to say the names along with us, and also to commit to doing more.
December the 17th is the International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers 2021. This Memorial Day is held annually by sex workers, allies and supporters from around the world who want to see an end to the murder and victimisation of sex workers by people in our communities who see them as disposable. The first International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers was held in 2003 in response to Gary Leon Ridgway, the Green River Killer, who was convicted of murdering 49 women involved in the sex industry in Seattle, Washington, although he's suspected of killing at least 71 women. Sex workers are violently eliminated from our communities, and the violence that they experience is often disregarded, and their deaths are seldom recognised. According to National Ugly Mugs, 186 sex workers, whose names are in the public domain, have been murdered in the UK since 1990. On the 10th of March 2021, Jess Phillips read in the chamber the names of women who were murdered last year, because we count what we care about. I've been asked by National Ugly Mugs and POW Nottingham to use my platform today to count what we care about, and they are as follows.
Patricia, London. Sarah, London. Susan, London. Sharon, London. Marina, London. Christine, Walthamstow. Robin, London. Christine, London. Mandy, London. Bedger, London.
Afrida, Croydon. Zoe, London. Paula, London. Adele, London. Sally, London. Rita, King's Cross. Julie, Hackney.
Bridget, London. Elizabeth, London. Janet, London. Oksana, London. Lisa, London. Camille, London. Michelle, London. Nazra, London.
Nifan, London. Alexandra, London. Bonnie, London. Destiny, Kentish Town. Gemma, Battersea. Louisa, Sutton. Carol, London. Marina, Ilford.
Maria, London. Rivka, Barnet. Floria, Edmonton. Anthony, London. Vanessa, Fulham. Denisa, London. Romina, London. Stella, Sutton.
Glenda, Rochester. Mandy, Braintree. Emma, Oxford. Sabrina, Luton. Laura, Hove. Hannah, Middlesex.
Katie, Reading. Mara, Husborn Tarrant. Andrea, Brighton. Jenny, Chatham. Carolina, Slough. Anita, Gerrards Cross.
Carol, Bristol. Sally, Swindon. Dawn, Plymouth. Becky, Bristol. Nadine, Bristol.
Angela, Bournemouth. Millie, Bournemouth. Sandra, Poole. Jennifer, Bournemouth.
Michelle, Leicester. Gail, Wolverhampton. Janine, Wolverhampton. Barbara, Coventry. Samo, Birmingham. Tracy, Stoke-on-Trent. Marie, Coventry. Danielle, Northampton. Say their names.
Lucy, Walsall. Christine, Nottingham. Marcella, Wolverhampton. Sarah, Northampton. Jodie, Birmingham. Nicola, Stoke-on-Trent. Tracy, Nottingham. Alicia, Wolverhampton.
Carolyn, Northampton. Jennifer, Wolverhampton. Anna, Shrewsbury. Samantha, Shrewsbury. Samantha, Stoke-on-Trent. Georgiana, Coventry. Lydia, Samwell.
Natalie, Norwich. Mandy, from Ipswich. Kelly, from Norwich. Hayley, from Norwich. Michelle, Norwich. Cara, Ipswich. Zelia, Peterborough.
Lenuta from Skegness. Christina from Sussex. Paula from Ipswich. Gemma from Ipswich. Annalie from Ipswich. Annette from Ipswich. Tanya from Ipswich.
Julie, Leeds. Samantha, Leeds. Lindsay, Leeds. Daria, Leeds.
Yvonne, Bradford. Kathleen, Doncaster. Fiona, Doncaster. Janet, Sheffield. Dawn, Sheffield. Maureen, Bradford. Caroline, Bradford. Michaela, Sheffield, Katrina, Sheffield, Geraldine, Huddersfield.
Karen, Hull. Samantha, Hull. Haley, Hull. Natalie, Hull. Maria, Hull. Lynn, Hull. Christina, Hull.
Joanne, Doncaster. Cheryl, Doncaster. Susan, Bradford. Shelley, Bradford. Suzanne, Bradford. Bernadetta, Richmond. Yvette, Derby.
Gemma, Bradford. Monica, Huddersfield. Rebecca, Bradford. Rebecca, Doncaster. Sarah, Huddersfield. Claire, Doncaster.
Kelly, Middlesbrough. Vicky, Middlesbrough. Rachel, Middlesbrough. Donna, Middlesbrough. Sarah, Middlesbrough. Natalie, Middlesbrough.
Christina, Manchester. Lynn, Chester. Julie, Liverpool. Angela, Bolton. Sharon, Liverpool. Janet, Manchester. Julie, Manchester. Vicky, Liverpool. Damien, Manchester.
Suzanne, Liverpool. Hanane, Liverpool. Pauline, Liverpool. Adele, Liverpool. Anne-Marie, Liverpool. Chantel, Birkenhead. Carly, Bolton. Danielle, Bolton.
Maria, Bolton. Jane, Burnley. Katria, Liverpool. Shelley, Burnley. Kelly, Bolton. Maxine, Liverpool.
Arminda, Clwyd. Kirsty, Swansea. Georgina, Usk. Chew, Belfast. Say their names.
Diane, Glasgow. Leona, Glasgow. Karen, Glasgow. Marjorie, Glasgow. Christine, Edinburgh. Jackie, Glasgow.
Tracy from Glasgow. Margot from Glasgow. Amy from Alexandria. Joanna from Glasgow. Joanne from Renton. And Suzanne from Aberdeen.
Emma, Glasgow. Lisa, Fife. Susan, Glasgow. Laura, Aberdeen. Luciana, Falkirk. Jessica, Aberdeen.
The names that we have just read are those of the 186 publicly known sex workers killed in the UK since 1990. We also honour those who have not been named as sex workers in the public domain, and those whose deaths are the results of wider-reaching marginalisation. We remember all those who are killed in sex work, but who cannot be named because of the shame and stigma. We remember sex workers who were killed, but not in their work. They were sex workers nonetheless, and part of our communities. We remember those who died from interpersonal violence, those who committed suicide, those who died of drug overdoses, bad drugs, or lack of healthcare, those who died as the result of poverty and need, and the sex workers lost on hazardous migration journeys. We remember all the lost friends, the colleagues, and the unknown strangers of our community. We also remember and mourn all the loss, hurt, and grief from the violence caused by the marginalised, criminalised, and victimised status of sex workers. We honour those who lived at the margins of our society, the addicts, the homeless or precariously housed, the migrants, refugees and asylum seekers, trans people, those living in poverty, people with disabilities, people of colour, those who went against the law and those who were failed by and not protected by it. We do not distinguish between the just and unjust, the deserving and undeserving victims. We grieve, mourn, and remember them all.
On this day, December 17th, the International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers, we at NUM ask you to go beyond saying their names. We ask you to go beyond recognising and remembering all their names on one day of the year, and we ask you to go beyond the acknowledgement and recognition of the violence endemic within sex work. We at NUM and our allies do not accept violence against sex workers in any form. We stand against the stigma, the discrimination and the oppression that create the conditions that exclude sex workers from civil society, prevent justice and silence their voices. On this day, we at NUM ask you to remember and carry their names with you every day. We ask that you stand up against stigma wherever and whenever. We ask that you challenge the narratives of sex workers and sex work, the bad girl, the immoral, the vulnerable, the feckless, the slut, the false consciousness. We ask that you listen to sex workers and hear what they say. Include sex workers in all your conversations and make it safe for them to be there. Find your common ground, find your intersectionality and include that in your ideologies. On this day, we at NUM ask that you challenge yourself and ask those difficult questions to do with sex, relationships, consent and work. What is the role of sex in our own relationships? How do we negotiate consent? Is it absolute? Is it conditional? What are the terms and conditions? How do we negotiate transactions in our own personal lives? Ask yourself, what is work? How much do I exchange of myself for a daily wage? My body, my time with my children and loved ones, my principles, my integrity, my self-destiny. When does labour become exploitative? When is somebody a bad employer and when do they become an exploiter, a trafficker or a facilitator of modern slavery? What forces drive this? And what is my privilege that separates me and my situation from that of others? And what bonds and unites us? Ask yourself, what would I do to support myself, my children, my loved ones when faced with issues of survival? On this day, we ask you to go beyond the names and resist and challenge. Resist and challenge all the policies and practices that harm, exclude, criminalise and victimise sex workers. We ask you to counter the narratives and stand up against bad policing, bad practice, bad policy, vigilantism and mass hysteria. We ask you to witness and act upon when you hear of these practices. We ask you to stand up when you hear of raids and rescue, when you hear about policeman enforcement that drives people underground, when you hear about rapes and murders. Please write, lobby, speak, contact your unions, contact your councillors, contact your MPs and state the case. We at NUM ask you to support all people without exception, regardless of their age, their race, their gender, their class, their abilities, their migration status, or their experiences of addiction or criminality. We ask that you actively support systems that are built for human need and not corporate profit. We ask that you support all the sex worker movements, the hardship funds, include them in all discussions, include them in your services at all stages of delivery, at all levels, and make it safe for that to happen. We ask that you support the full decriminalisation of sex work as the most effective way to reduce all forms of violence and harms against sex workers. This year, we ask that you take these names with you every day into every aspect of your life and act upon them.